that since the Holy Prophet, while promising the replies to the questions, did not say, if God wills, i.e. he did not rely upon God, the consequence was the delay. This story is an untenable conjecture because the very fact that he said that he would reply only when God reveals to him the answers, which clearly implies dependence or reliance only upon God's will. This verse was revealed not by way of any solace to relieve the Holy Prophet of the burden of any effect of the taunts of the disbelievers on his divinely conditioned mind, but it was only in reply to the taunts and slander and to remove the evil effect of it on the mind of the common man, this declaration was made. It is paradoxical to imagine that the one conditioned by God himself for the fulfillment of his own plan to deliver his final word to mankind and to reform the human race as a whole in all aspects and all walks of life, and who was purified to the maximum extent possible, to have still labored under the common weakness of the mind to be affected by mere taunts from an ignorant and degenerate people like the pagans of Mecca, which even ordinary man with the common sense intact would patiently bear. Regarding the occasion for the revelation of this passage, commentators have given different accounts. All that the passage itself implies is that due to some delay in revelation, the opponents remark that God has forsaken him and God getting tired of him, which is negated by the passage, and from reading this with the subsequent verses the justification of the oath to begin with, is obvious to mean that, the life might have ups and downs, but this does not affect the fact that thou art in the constant care of the Lord. AP. Verse 4. This refers to the great promise of the Lord to the Holy Prophet that greatness in this world and also in the hereafter will be his. Because in spite of the ups and downs, he is in constant progress towards infinite perfection. 9. AP. Verse 5. The grant to the utmost satisfaction or the pleasure of the Holy Prophet could never be restricted to anything of this material world, which is low, mean and strictly temporary. It is the right of intercession for the sinners. It is said that the Holy Prophet said that he will not be pleased even if a single believer in God is left unredeemed of his sins and admitted to the bliss in the heaven. The granting mentioned is indefinite. Anything indefinitely mentioned means everything possible under the term. The grant or the gift is always according to the position or the greatness or the excellence of the giver. The one who grants here is the all-merciful, almighty and all-divine, and the omnipresent being with all his divine attributes. The grant from him when mentioned indefinitely, would mean the grant of the reflection of all his excellence and glory. Hence it is granted under promise to the Holy Prophet, to receive all the divine attributes in his divinely purified personality and manifest them to mankind as his vicegerent on earth. People ignorant of the actual position of the Holy Prophet and his al-bayt, imagines them as ordinary mortals like themselves, whereas a proper study of the Holy Quran discloses the degree of the divinity endowed in these holy ones. It is said that the Holy Prophet was so much pleased at the revelation of this verse that he went to his daughter Lady Fatima's house and happily recited it, giving here the glad tidings of the life in the hereafter. D.M. The Holy Prophet was extremely happy to receive this promise from God, for the authority was to save the sinners to his heart's content. This is an unequivocal assurance that he will be given whatever may satisfy him. The following verses illustrate his being in the constant care of the Lord. This point should be noted that 3 subsequent verses wherein is used the term, his being found. The conjunctive particle, fa, is used to show the action taken by God as the consequence of his finding was immediate without any lapse of time between his finding and the action taken. The commentators have given different interpretations and accounts for the use of the word zal here to answer. Some criticize, but there is no need of any deviation from the literal meaning of the verse, i.e. whenever God found thee lost or in loss in whatever direction it may be, physical or spiritual, he guided thee immediately. That means there is no lapse of time between God's finding and his guidance, and it is obvious that there cannot be any lapse of time between God's creation of Muhammad and God's finding Muhammad's need. Therefore, God's guidance is with Muhammad from the commencement of his existence, whether in this physical or physical spiritual realms. Thus, this verse is one of the Quranic proofs of the Holy Prophet being infallible in absolute conformity with 53, 2 and 55. 1-4. AP. Verse 6. Commentators say that this is a reference to the providential protection which was divinely arranged for the Holy Prophet through guardian after guardian when he was orphaned. Only a few days after the Holy Prophet's birth his father Abdullah passed away and he was taken into the care of his grandfather Abdul Muttalib, and when he was only of 2 years, his mother Amina bint Wahab also left this world. And, when he was of 8 years his grandfather Abdul Muttalib departed, handing over the charge of his grandson the Hajj, Prophet, to his son Abu Talib Ali's father. And it was the protection of Abu Talib, Ali's father, that was a providential plan to give the Holy Prophet the protection he needed from the evil hands of the wicked pagans of Mecca, to start his ministry and proceed with his mission until he could bear the hardships and also manage the affairs of his ministry. Abu Talib was a father, a guardian, the strongest protector of the Holy Prophet, who suffered the brunt of hostilities of his people but never left the side of the Holy Prophet and never allowed Islam's progress to be stopped or marred by its enemies. He was the shield with which the truth Islam could hate its start and its progress despite the heavy attacks from falsehood. The year Abu Talib passed away was called the Am al-Huzn, i.e. the year of grief. It was after the death of Abu Talib that the pagan hostilities against the Holy Prophet took the most aggressive turn. Abu Talib left the world donating his son Ali, the Lion of God, to the Holy Prophet to be his protector and the ever-triumphant victor in all the battles that were fought to protect Islam and the Muslims. It needs one only to know the peculiarly adverse circumstances through which the Holy Prophet was made to pass through safe and was allowed to start the mission, and how he was providentially helped by the miraculous strength, dauntless valor, the inimitable courage, the indefatigable and the unshakable faith of Ali under the circumstances when far from achieving any victory the very survival itself was impossible, and how the most unconquerable enemies were captured and crushed never to rise again. It will be only with the correct knowledge of the facts about the services of Abu Talib and his godly son, the lion-hearted Ali, that the extent to which the Holy Prophet was helped by God on earth will be properly assessed and understood. History bears the clearest testimony to the fact that it was Abu Talib and his son Ali that stood by the Holy Prophet and Islam, in all the most adverse and the most difficult circumstances, with none else to match them in this regard. History says that Abu Talib took special care about the safety of the Holy Prophet when still a boy he was entrusted to his care. It is reported that Abu Talib used to make the Holy Prophet sleep in his bed for half the night, and the other half, he laid Ali in it, shifting the Holy Prophet to Ali's bed. The question arises, when the Holy Prophet was yet a boy and had not started his mission, none knew or could even say that one day he was to be the Apostle of God, and there was no necessity for anyone to be an enemy to him. Abu Talib's special care of the Holy Prophet could never be without some inspired knowledge of the actual position of the Holy Prophet beforehand, even while he was yet a boy. The attitude which Abu Talib had adopted was that of the Mu'min al-Fir'aun, the believer of the people of Fir'aun who hid his faith 28. To speak the truth, Abu Talib was the first believer in Islam, and Khadijah and Ali come only after him. Since an apostle of God is the supreme authority of God as his vicegerent on earth, he cannot be subjected to any authority excepting that of the Lord. Hence all the elders, the father, the mother, the grandfather, were withdrawn from this world, and the uncle Abu Talib was kept only until it was necessary for the mission, and when Ali was there to take the place of his father to defend the Holy Prophet and the faith, even the uncle was withdrawn from this world. The Christian missionary force is ever vigilant, not to know any truth about Islam or the Holy Prophet, but to avail of even the least falsehood which could be coined against Islam and its holy teacher. Verse 7. Mere common sense would suggest to any learned one to take the meaning of every word in its proper context, or study any event with its background. The meaning of the word, zal, is taken as ignorant, whereas it means also lost, and in view of the common story connected with the interpretation of this verse, it means only lost. What the common story says is that when Halima, the nurse to the Holy Prophet, started on her journey to Mecca to restore the young Muhammad to his grandfather, she left him at a place at the outskirts of the town and went into the desert to answer the call of nature. When she returned, she did not find the holy child in the place where she had left Getting perturbed, the lady reported the matter to Abd al-Muttalib, the grandfather of the Holy Prophet. Abd al-Muttalib apprehended some foul play on the part of some enemies, came out with a drawn sword, and collecting all his tribesmen carried out a thorough search for the child, but everyone returned disappointed. Halima ran hither and thither and met an old man and implored him to give her the whereabouts of Muhammad. The moment the holy name Muhammad was pronounced, in the Kaaba, Habal with all the other idols fell headlong to the ground. The old man seemed to be troubled. Meanwhile arrived Abdul Muttalib with his tribesmen and offering his prayer to God, to be informed of the whereabouts of the child. A voice came saying, "Go, he is in the valley of Tahuma." Abdul Muttalib started for the place, and on his way, he met Waraka ibn Nawfal, who told him that he saw the boy in the valley of Tahuma. Abd al-Muttalib went there and found the boy playing with the branches of a tree. Abd al-Muttalib had not seen Muhammad since he as a baby was handed over to Halima. He could not recognize the boy and asked the boy if he had seen the child Muhammad. The boy replied, "I am Muhammad." Abd al-Muttalib took his grandson and pressed him to his heart and brought him home. The verse is said to refer to his having been taken for lost and the people having been guided towards him. The verse may also mean that whatever knowledge the Holy Prophet possessed, it was not that which he acquired in this world but that which was gifted to him by God himself, in his very genesis, i.e. he was only the mouthpiece of God. Let none think that whatever is said of the Holy Prophet is his own, but the revelation from the Lord. The eighth holy Imam interprets this to mean that the people did not know the actual position, i.e. thou wert lost in their ignorance, and God guided mankind to know thee and thus raised thee in their knowledge. The word zal has been used in the Holy Quran, given different meanings in the different places. 10. Let those who interpret zal as gone astray refer to 53, 2, wherein God emphatically asserts that the Holy Prophet is the one who has not gone astray. Verse 8. Commentators interpret this verse as a reference to the pecuniary provisions which the Holy Prophet received from the wealth of his wife Khadijah and what he got through the leftover of the enemies he dedicated for the defensive battles. But it would be too low and even a very mean estimate of the provision which God says that he has made for the Holy Prophet. God's provision would be in accordance with God's greatness and glory. The eighth holy Imam Ali ibn Musa ar-Riza says that the word yatim here means lonely. The Holy Prophet was lonely, alone without any friends or sympathizers, and God directed the hearts of men and got the people around him as his devotees. Verse 9. The address is to the Holy Prophet, but it is an ordinance for the believers in particular and mankind as a whole. The Holy Prophet said that, "He who pleases an orphan, I shall be pleased with him on the day of judgment." Again the Holy Prophet said, "He who maintains an orphan in honor, he and I will be thought in action," and to warn him against his rebellious attitude toward the true Lord of the universe. He prayed for the extension or the expansion of his breast or heart, meaning to increase him in knowledge. 9. The same words occur in 6:125, wherein it is mentioned that whomsoever God pleases, he extends or expands the individual's breast, i.e. heart, for Islam, and in contrast to this it is said that whomsoever God wills, he straightens and narrows the individual's breast. In spite of what the expression, expansion of a breast, clearly means, some commentators have coined a very insulting and very offending story about the native purity of the divine personality of the Holy Prophet, saying that the messenger angel Gabriel took hold of him and performed an operation of his breast by cutting it open, washed the heart and then placed it in its place and closed the breast, and interpreted this verse illustrating their explanation, referring to their own fabricated story, which is not only fantastic but grossly degrading the holiest of God's creation. The expansion meant here is the illumination of the heart or the soul with the vastness of the great extent of the knowledge affected, not in this world but in the very creation of the soul and in the very make of the body, referring to this inherent or native purity of the soul and the body of the Holy Prophet, and of those of his family who had to play his role in his place after him, as the guides to mankind, viz. his al-Bayt, i.e. the Lady Fatima and the 12 holy Imams. God has declared in 33, the advent of the Holy Prophet was the fulfillment of the divine promise to give mankind a perfect guide. A fully accomplished prophet referred to in the Old Testament 10, who would be the Spirit of truth, who would give the all truth, the Holy Ghost, prophesied by Jesus 11. He actually acted as the best and the greatest. 1. Apostle of God, i.e. a religious teacher and leader. 2. Spiritual guide. 3. Judge. 4. Legislator. 5. King. 6. Administrator. 7. Military commander. 8. A citizen. 9. Kind husband. 10. Affectionate father. 11. Guardian of orphans and the poor. 12. Protector of woman's rights. 13. A friend and companion. 14. A philosopher and say, and the various other positions in life. He was the one who was destined by God to convey to mankind the all-truth, i.e. the truth is a whole about the all-divine one and the ways of approaching him, i.e. earning the salvation which even Jesus, the immediate forerunner of the holy prophet, could not do for humanity then could not bear it. 12. Jesus had only to prophesy about the advent of the holy prophet, the Spirit of truth. 13. The Holy Ghost. 14. And the Comforter. 15. Note that the same expansion of the breast or the heart was prayed for by Moses. 16, whereas in the case of the holy prophet it is granted unasked for. The verse clearly refers to the holy prophet being given the helper in his cousin Ali ibn Abu Talib. The appointment of Ali as the Vizier, i.e. the bearer of the burden, was announced at the very outset of the holy prophet's ministry, in the historic assembly of the leaders of the Quraysh, which meeting is known in history as the Dawat al-Ashira, i.e. the Feast of the Kith and Kin. 17. Note Moses also prayed to God to strengthen his back with the help of his brother Aaron, and here the back was strengthened without asking. There is a great identity between Moses and the holy prophet. And this has also been prophesied by God in the Old Testament. 18. Verse 2. The Vizier means the burden of the apostleship, i.e. ministry. 19. AP. Verse 4. This is a prophetic announcement of the mention, or the eminence of the holy prophet being raised to glorious heights both in this world and in the hereafter, high above the mention of any one in the world. Bringing into account the salawat, or the salutation, every Muslim is obliged to recite it at least in each of the 5 times daily prayer. There is none in the world to be compared to the holy prophet in this regard, for the name of no other apostle of God is mentioned in such abundance. This prophecy was made when the prophet was a solitary figure, not much recognized even by the people of his own place, and when most of the people in his environment were hostile to him. None can correctly enumerate the number of times the holy prophet along with his holy al-bayt is remembered even in a single day of the year. Verse 5. The whole life of the holy prophet was of persecution, difficulties and toil, dangers and worries. The repeated statement here is to give emphasis to the promise and its assurance of the ultimate triumph of the cause, even though in the earlier stages the situation was utterly hopeless and the survival of the holy prophet, the Muslims and the very name of the faith, Islam, seemed to be an impossibility. By making his name to be mentioned in the azan, the call for prayer, in the tashahhud, in the prayer itself, and in the form of salawat, i.e. the salutation, on him and his al-bayt wherever his name is mentioned. 20. AP. Verse 6. This is in conformity with the first and second verses of the previous chapter. AP. Verse 7. This refers to the instruction to the holy prophet, to fix up the one already notified by him at the Dawat al-Ashira, i.e. Ali ibn Abu Talib. See note on verse 2 above and 5. 67, in his place. By the time and wording of the verse 5. 67 it gets evident that it was the instruction through this verse, i.e. about appointing Ali as his successor, that the holy prophet was waiting to execute. The verse 5. 67 clearly states, convey that which has already been sent down to thee, i.e. appointment of Ali, the instructions for which had already been received. The concluding words and the tone of the same verse 5. 67 show that the matter was of vital importance to the faith, and no further delay in executing the will of the Lord was desirable even under the apprehension of any mischief, for God, in the same verse 5. 67 promises to save the holy prophet from mischief. The matter was so important and essential to be enacted that at its enactment was declared, the completion or the perfection of Islam is the religion and the perfection of God's bounties. C5. 3. See note in 5:67 which gives the details about the revelation of the verse when the Holy Prophet was at Ghadir come along with the huge number of the pilgrims, on his return from Mecca after performing the last Hajj of his life on earth. This verse is a clear instruction to the Holy Prophet, i.e. to say, when he has completed the work of his ministry, to appoint Ali in his place as the commander or the master of the faithful. This is the most appropriate literal translation of this verse, but the other commentators have given various interpretations, none is appropriate with the context of these two chapters. The Holy Prophet has been burdened with the task of conveying the last word of the Lord or the last divine message to mankind. Here in this early Meccan chapter the Holy Prophet is commanded to prepare himself for another task, more vital than the mere preaching, i.e. the establishment, and the perpetuation of the chain of the words of God 28:51, the last link of which he was entrusted with, by nominating the person who would succeed him as a guardian and the exponent of all that he had preached. It was the same duty which the Holy Prophet was commanded to execute in the last chapter revealed to him, in the closing days of his ministry 5:3-67, after the execution of which, verse 5:3 was revealed, after finishing all the tasks referred to in verses 5 and 6, the Holy Prophet has been commanded to return unto the Lord. 1. Should realize how this small chapter of the early Meccan period deals with the most important stages and the different functions which the Holy Prophet had to undergo and to performing of which, is in complete conformity with the last Madanite chapter of the Quran. AP. Verse 8. Fargab, i.e. get inclined, this was the instruction to the Holy Prophet, when he had finished his work as God's apostle, i.e. completed the duties of his ministry, to fix up Ali in his place and then get ready to return. Note the sublime words in which God expresses his will that the Holy Prophet should retire from this world. There is no mention of death. The instructions are to incline himself, i.e. to return to him at his own choice and pleasure, for it is quite evident from this, that death to the Holy Prophet is not as it is to any other mortal, but it is a willing return for which he was eagerly waiting to do. The fact is, that those who fear the retribution for their life deeds, naturally dread death, and for those who are always in communion maintaining their original purity, would naturally long to return to enjoy the bliss, of which, they are sure. 1. Refer to 20:25. Commentary. Verse 1. The names of the things and the events which have been used in the solemn statements in the Holy Quran, are mostly symbols of some latent objects, the knowledge of which God has willed to keep it away from the common minds. Teen, i.e. fig, but commentators have given many alternate interpretations which are only conjectures. Ibn Abbas says i.e. the fig stands for the Mosque of Noah, and Zaytun, i.e. the olive, for Jerusalem. Balad al-Amin, i.e. the city of security, city of the trusted one, the Holy Prophet, i.e. Mecca. Fig is known to be the finest, the most wholesome and also the most nutritious fruit used not only as food but a remedy for several bodily complaints. It is taken as a symbol for man's destiny. In its origin, i.e. in its existence, as a seed, it is full of worms and maggots and insipid in taste, but in its full and healthy growth, it is the best fruit as said above. Similarly, man when he deteriorates, becomes the lowest of the low, and when he develops or rises, he excels even the angels in excellence. Jesus, coming from Bethany, feeling hungry, went to a fig tree and finding it standing without any fruits, dropping only dry leaves, cursed it and it immediately withered to its roots. 6. Prophet Jeremiah has also used figs as symbols in comparing the good ones of the Jews to good figs and the bad ones among them to vile ones of the fruit. 7. For the symbol of the olive, see 24:35 refer the lamp lit by God, it might refer to Jerusalem. See 52:2, and Math. 2:4-3-4. Verses 2 and 3 refer to holy places where from the Word of God, Torah and Quran, were given to the two prominent law-giver prophets, so the fig and the olive in the first verse must appropriately refer to the places where the Word of God was revealed. It is said that Teen is the name of a mountain in Damascus and Zaytun, another mountain in Palestine. They were named after the fruits that grew on them, and these were the places where Jesus and Moses and the other Israelite prophets used to retire for communion with God. AP. Verse 2. Senin, i.e., Sinai, where the law was given to Moses, c. 19, 52. And on the Mount Sinai God manifested his glory to Moses and the men who came there asking for the manifestation of God's glory. Verse 3. Balad al-Amin, the city of security, Mecca, where the final word of God, the Holy Quran, had the start of its revelation. But some say, Amin, stands for the Holy Prophet, then it will mean the city Mecca where the Holy Prophet, the last apostle of God, was born. The people themselves called the Holy Prophet as Amin. Verse 4. Asan, i.e. the best. Taqweem, i.e. the make, the constitution, structure, form, pattern. One who knows the wonderful wisdom with which every part of the human body, with its form, its structure, its faculties and its constitution, which manages the function of each part in perfect harmony with every other, and the marvelous faculties the brain is endowed with, will know the significance of man being referred to in invoking the recognition of the existence of the one with the supreme wisdom, power and the authority who has effected such marvels in the universe. The make of everything in God's creation is so perfect that there is no room for any change or alternative in it. 8. Man has been made with such supreme endowments that with the maintenance of these gifts in their original purity, he is the vicegerent of God on earth, superior even to the greatest of the angels in the heavens. It is only to man that is given the wonderful endowment or gift of conscience or discretion, a tool with which there is no height to which man cannot reach. In short, if man keeps his soul safe against getting polluted or getting covered with the dust and the dirt of the low desires and loathsome passions, he can get the divine attributes of the Creator Lord reflected in him, and which is the highest level and the final goal of the human life on earth. Verse 5. When man, the same wonderful and the great work of the Almighty and all-wise Providence, loses the equilibrium of his conscience and gets lost into the wrong tracks of low passions seeking the satisfaction of the carnal desires, is thrown in the abyss of degradation and ignominy, and fits himself only for the flames of the hell fire. The same Almighty and all-wise author of the laws of nature, who creates man with such marvelous and excellent gifts of the wonderful strength of mind and body, again manifests the function of his will on the reverse side of the existence, that as man advances in age, after reaching the zenith of the development of the endowed faculties, he begins to deteriorate and is ultimately reduced to the stage of helplessness of his babyhood with which he started his life, and returns to the dust from which he was brought forth. Verse 6. It is far from real charity to give a thing and take it back. When we give anything to the needy, we do not take it back from them. Would God, having given life to man, take it away from him? No. Man has been created for eternity. He has to work in this world, for the life eternal of his, in the hereafter, to be either in bliss and enjoyment or in misery and suffering. The life in this world is only the chance given to every individual man and woman to prepare or build his or her own heaven or hell. He who believes in the true Lord and does good to others in this life shall get the unending blissful life in heaven, and if he fails, he gets the same life eternal of horrible suffering and terrible tortures, never to be cut off. This is a clear assertion that man of faith and virtues is the topmost in the order of creation in absolute conformity with the vicegerency of man, and thus this discards the doctrine of original sin and the fall of Adam, for Adam is the chosen one and the rest of the chosen issues of his all come under this exception. The reversion applies to those who fail to follow the divine guidance after Adam settled on earth. 9. Another point is that the human structure being the best one in the order of creation, the man of faith and virtues shall retain their forms in all the stages in their movement towards the absolute, and even in the final resurrection. Hence the tradition that the martyr's soul will have the form of a green bird hanging under the arsh has been pointed out by the sixth holy Imam as spurious. AP. Verse 7. In spite of so much clear evidence given and the doubtless proofs presented, none can ever contradict what the Holy Prophet preached about the Day of Judgment. Verse 8. God is the best of judges to know the truth about each individual being, be that open or concealed. Justice will be meted out to each one according to the individual's merits and demerits. None can ever escape the law of requital, which will be strictly followed both in this life as well as in the hereafter. 1. Refer to 52. 1, 2. Refer to. 14. 35, 3. 97. 3. Rendered. 4. Refer to. 25. 44, 7. 179. 5. Refer to. 10. 109. 6. 57. 2. 284. 4. 40. 18. 49. 21. 47. 6. See Math. 2119. 7. Jer 24110. See also Math. 243235 for the parable of the fig tree. 8. See 30. 30. 9. Refer to. 2. 38. Shares. Revelations received by the Holy Prophet through the messenger angel Gabriel in the cave of Hira. Formerly the Holy Prophet used to receive the communion through dreams and the voices while he was alone in lonely places and did not see the speaker. In the 40th year of his life on the 27th night of the month Rajab, when the Holy Prophet was busy in his meditation and prayers in the cave on the Mount Hira, in deep silence and the calm atmosphere, all of a sudden, he heard a voice calling him by name, and a flood of light broke in upon him with dazzling splendor. He composedly beheld a human form approaching. It was the messenger angel Gabriel, who, coming quite near, held a silken scroll before him and asked him to read what was written thereon. He felt his mind fully illumined with the divine light and his eyes were opened to the writing on the scroll. And he recited the first 5 verses of this surah. When he had finished the recitation, the angel announced, O Muhammad, verily thou art the apostle of God and